Six in 10 U.S. insurers agree that there is growing demand from stakeholders to consider environmental, social, and governance, or ESG factors in their underwriting and investment decision-making, according to survey results published by AM Best. AM Best survey also gauged the industry's different segments for a sense of how ESG principles and approaches may vary across lines of business. Here to discuss the survey and touch on some of its results is Associate Director Jason Hopper. Jason, can you explain how the responses may have differed across the different segments, property casualty, life and annuity, health?
Sure, Lori, thanks. So I think that the main high-level takeaways that we saw based on the results from the survey of U.S. insurers is that property casualty insurers tend to focus on ESG factors and strategies more as it relates to environmental risk and climate risk. Life insurers tend to focus on ESG factors a little more as it relates to investment risk. And health insurers tend to focus on ESG factors as it relates to social health equity.
Is there an area in which the responses showed some similarity despite coming from different segments?
Sure. So I think the number one takeaway is that all U.S. insurers tend to focus on the G part of ESG, the governance factor, both internally as well as externally when choosing partners and other companies to work with. Insurers across the U.S. also agree that there is increased pressure from stakeholders to explicitly consider ESG factors within their overall business plan and operating environment. And insurers across the U.S. also agree that disregarding ESG factors will eventually lead to some type of reputational risk. And that's something that U.S. insurers do want to avoid.
What kind of feedback from the ESG responses was around investments?
So life insurers obviously have the largest investment portfolios within the insurance industry. So they're a little bit more aware and focused on ESG within the investment process. But regardless, insurers across all three segments did respond saying that they plan to implement ESG factors within investment decision-making sometime within the next year, either start to or improve upon already their strategies. Another thing that we have noticed is the strategies implemented, such as negative or positive screening for investments. Again, looking back at the G factor in ESG, the governance factor, I think plays a critical role in terms of possibly choosing asset managers or which companies or bonds to invest in, not to invest in, things like that.
So this is the first of two ESG survey-based reports that will be published. What can you tell us about the scope of that second upcoming report?
Sure. So we had issued this survey globally to all of our rated companies. And we had put out an initial survey in November of 2020 focusing on the European and Asia Pacific regions combined as a whole. So this next go around, we're going to analyze by region. You have the US, Canada, Caribbean, Latin America, and we split up Europe and Asia Pacific. So that analysis will be by region and kind of how views diverge across the world globally.
Jason, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lori.
That was Jason Hopper, Associate Director at AM Best. To view a copy of the report, visit ambest.com. For AM Best TV, I'm Lori Chortis.